Newshour Special Edition.
Hello and welcome to Newshour Direct. Mr. Minhaz Merchant joining me today as he writes this book, Modi, The Challenge of 2024, and very aptly named this the Battle for India. Mr. Minhaz Merchant, why do you call this the Battle for India? Is it only Modi's battle for India, or is it also the opposition's battle for India?
Well, actually, Navika, good question. The real battle is for the soul of India. Now, when we thought of the title, The Battle for India, the acronym India, the opposition acronym, did not exist. That happened only in July, the end of July. So we decided to keep that because to me and to most people, India is the country. So the battle for India really is the battle for the soul of India, for the future of India. But the book, Navika, overall, rests on four pillars. Number one, of course, is the elections, the Lok Sabha election in 2024, which is going to be historic because if Modi wins, he'll be the first Indian leader since Jawaharlal Nehru to win 3 5-year prime ministerial terms. It'll be historic in many other ways as well because once you have the opposition out of power for 15 years, there's an erosion of their viability. And the third is the whole transformation of India to Bharat. Whichever way you look at it, that will again gain momentum in these next 5 years. So it's going to be a very decisive election and set the political trend for the next decade or so. The other three pillars on which the book rests, apart from 2024, is one, the Prime Minister's own performance in these 10 years that he's been the PM, across domains, the economy, foreign affairs, technology, welfare, everything. The third pillar, apart from his performance, is the opposition, and this time the acronym India comes in. United opposition, 26 parties, now 28, may become 29 tomorrow, we don't know. But the point is, will this acronym India be a challenge for Modi, which is why we've got that particular title in the main title. And the fourth thing which is part of this, of course, is India itself, the country. What does it need? Now, in 2014, when Mr. Modi became the Prime Minister, we were the 10th largest economy in the world. In these 9.5 years, we are now the 5th largest and likely to be, by 2029, the end of this next term, the 3rd largest economy, overtaking both Germany and Japan. And in fact, in a year and a half, Navika, it's interesting to note, not many people have realized this, that in a year and a half we'll overtake Germany to become the 4th largest economy with a GDP of about $4.2 trillion, just behind Japan and just ahead of Germany. And that will be the first time in 300 years that there'll not be a single European country in the top 4 economies of the world. No British Empire, no French Empire, no other country, no Germany. So it's going to be a tectonic change in the shift of balance of power from the west to the east.
Well, let me also ask you, you talk about one of the pillars, which is the opposition, INDIA. I want to ask you, in the book,
right,
do you give any clues on how this battle of 2024 is going to be? Is it a close battle? Does the opposition become formidable? Because if they were to offer a single candidate against the BJP in around 400 seats in the country, do you think they have a chance? And do you think they'll get close to that seat sharing arrangement? Because these days everybody is gazing into the crystal ball that can give them clues to the 2024 elections, which is such a huge interest area for everyone whether it's the citizen of India, whether it's a journalist, whether it's a politician, or somebody in the corporate world.
Yeah, no, Navika, you're quite right. It's a decisive election. As I said a few minutes ago, it's going to set the trend politically for the next decade or so. The opposition, to answer your question directly, if they can manage the seat sharing in 400 seats with direct fights between India candidates against the BJP, then yes, that will be a challenge in many states, particularly in the Hindi heartland, where the BJP swept either a clean sweep or a near clean sweep in places like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, etc. So there would be a challenge in all these states. But as we've seen, already dissensions are beginning to bubble up in the India coalition. So I think it's going to be difficult because Mamata Banerjee is very temperamental. She's already said, I will not give up a single seat in West Bengal. So those 42 seats are completely out of the purview of anyone apart from the TMC. Arvind Kejriwal is an extremely opportunistic person. Whether he will bend in Punjab and Delhi with the Congress, because the local Congress is totally against any tie-up with AAP, that's another issue. In Bihar, Nitish Kumar, his people are now making him out to be the face of India. And of course, Mamata vetoed him as convener yesterday. But the point is that, different parties with different ideologies and regional rivalries, to get them together on seat sharing and then to actually honor those seat sharing agreements. It's going to be very difficult. At the same time, Navika, you cannot underestimate the power of a one-to-one fight in these seats. So what the BJP should do, if the BJP, and I'm sure they've thought about this, is to break up India into 5 clusters and to look at the pathway, given the challenge of the United India opposition, to create a pathway with 5 clusters. Do you want me to go over them very briefly, the 5 clusters which would take them to a majority?
Absolutely, and I'd also like to know if you've given this theory and this blueprint to the BJP itself.
No, I haven't. Apart from Modi, I don't know anybody in the BJP. I'm completely, neutral and arm's length. So the only meeting I've had is with Mr. Jaishankar, and that too when he was Foreign Secretary, just before the Uri strike, the Uri strike in 2016. But my meeting with Jaishankar was completely unconnected with that. It was in August of 2016, and it was at his request that I met him. Otherwise, I like to keep arm's length from the entire cabinet. So the blueprint in my columns I have in fact given, and in the book, not really, because in the book, Navika, things change. A book is a long-term thing. It's not like a column. So you can't really do a sort of electoral math as I do in my columns. But if the BJP had a blueprint, and I don't know if they have, I would suggest that they look at 5 clusters. Number 1 would be 3 states, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. They should aim at least, now I know that a lot of people may say, oh, it may not happen, but 70 seats in Uttar Pradesh, despite the SP Congress coming together, perhaps or perhaps not. All 26 in Gujarat is definite, and 40 in Maharashtra, with the 3 alliance partners, NCP and
Shiv Sena.
Shinde's Shiv Sena, and of course the BJP. So if you look at that, 70, 40, and 26 Gujarat, that takes us to 136 seats straight away. And that's exactly half the majority of 272. Then you come to cluster 2, which is where approximately 7 or 8 states in the Hindi heartland largely, where the BJP made a complete sweep or a near sweep. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, etc., etc. Now, and Delhi, of course, 7 out of 7. Here, without going into the mathematics in detail, I reckon they can get despite the one-on-one fight that may take place in Rajasthan and MP and so on, and indeed in Delhi, I reckon they can get 80 seats in that second cluster. So 136 plus 80. That's 216 in just these two clusters with a total of 10 states. Then you come to the third cluster, Narika, which is the east. And there are 4 key states there: Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, and West Bengal. Now, here, you can sort of go up and down. West Bengal, I don't think they're going to get the 18 seats they got last time. Odisha, good chance of getting into double digits. Jharkhand, again, a fairly good chance. And Bihar, of course, is a 50-50, because the RJD-JDU combination, caste-wise, is formidable. But at the same time, the BJP not needing to share seat allocations, which they had to do last time, with the JDU, and having smaller Paswan-type allies, might well be able to get at least 20 seats, and indeed maybe even much, much more than that. So that third cluster should get them anything between 45 to 50 seats. Let's say 50 seats. Arithmetically, 266. Figure. 15, those 4 eastern states. That takes you to 266 out of whatever, just 6 short of the majority. Fourth cluster, northeast. Assam predominant, and then the other, despite the problems in Manipur, etc. I reckon 15 is a target that they could get. So we're up to 281. And that takes us to the 5th and final cluster in the south, where they'll draw a complete blank in almost every state, with the exception of Karnataka. Now, with the JDS and BJP alliance, even though there's a little bit of cannibalization, etc., I reckon that Karnataka, 25 to 28 last time, it might drop considerably to 15 or 18, and very little from Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, nothing at all. Tamil Nadu, maybe 1 or 2, despite unnormalized Yatra, nothing in Kerala, so 20 there. So that takes us to just over 300, 301. So if you have a blueprint, that's the blueprint you should focus on.
Can they actually do it?
I think it depends on 2 factors. Number one, how honestly and efficiently the opposition India can get the seat sharing thing done properly. And secondly, it depends also on the events over the next few months. That includes the Ram Temple inauguration in January. There are 5 state elections. 4 of them are very, very important. Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Rajasthan, and of course Telangana. So there will be a little bit of a negative impact, because most of those elections will not go to the BJP, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. We don't know, because it's really up in the air. But the inauguration of the Ram Temple and many of the other things like the G20, there's an afterglow of the G20, which will have an impact. There's going to be a virtual meeting that's going to take place at the end of November, the G20. There's the IMEC corridor, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, which in 60 days, as per the MOU signed by the US President Joe Biden and all the others, the Saudis, and of course Mr. Modi, in 60 days they've got to work out a blueprint for IMEC, and that is going to be a big game changer. Rail, road, ships, and cables, right up to the center of Europe. So, this is going to be not only an alternative to the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative of China, but is going to establish India as a major hub, and the kind of economic advantages that will flow into India in terms of infrastructure and so on and so forth are really, really quite huge. So I think all of that, if it works out in the next 4 or 5 months, the momentum that the BJP could acquire would be very good. And along with the Ram Temple, how polarization works in our country, then I think the blueprint that I've chalked out could work out. That's the second factor. But the first is whether the opposition can get its act together And Rahul Gandhi, one of the, obviously, the leader of the single largest party in the opposition, he's got to change his strategy, because what he's doing right now is attacking Modi, which actually suits Modi. Because the more you attack Mr. Modi from Rahul Gandhi, the more people actually will coalesce around him. What Rahul should be doing is focusing on the issues, forming a shadow cabinet on defense, on foreign affairs, on the economy, giving viable alternative policies on all these issues, and stop making these almost psychotic attacks on the Prime Minister, which actually harm him and the Congress, and therefore India, the acronym India, opposition India, more than they harm Mr. Modi.
Let me ask you, according to your book, you say the Prime Minister won his mandate on the promise of minimum government, maximum governance, but the opposite has often been the case. You also say the BJP is already acquiring some of the traits of the old elite. With this on the one side that you notice,
right,
and on the other you say that Modi is the poster boy of hard Hindutva warrior during elections, pro-poor messiah at home, and a sober global statements abroad. How do you sort of marry these two to tell us what will be the result in 24?
Yeah, see, Navika, actually, the book is actually quite a critical assessment of what Mr. Modi has done right and what he's done wrong. And I believe that there are at least 6 things which Mr. Modi should look at in order to improve performance, because everyone, can improve. There's nothing that that no one is perfect. So the first is that he is surrounded by a lot of yes men, people who do not dissent with his opinions, who don't say, okay, I think we should do this differently. So have more no men and less yes men.
Do you advise him? Do you advise him when you meet him?
Much more, I mean, we all know Navika. No, I don't advise anyone. But Navika, I have written in my columns, and he follows me.
Okay.
On Twitter, and I'm the only person who doesn't follow him back, because he follows 2,500 people, and each one of them, 2,499, follow him back. I've told him, Baba, I'm not going to follow you, because as a neutral, balanced person, that's 10 years ago I said that. I haven't followed him for 10 years, and he continues to follow me in both his handles. I have never tweeted or retweeted anything Mr. Modi has tweeted in the past 10 years, or any cabinet minister has tweeted in the past 10 years. So that is actual journalism, where you can't do PR. And Mr. Modi knows that, and he actually appreciates it. He said to me quite often in the past that he would like constructive criticism. And I'm afraid that, a lot of ministers, a lot of MPs in the BJP don't give him that constructive criticism. So that's one. Second is that, Navika is a deification of Mr. Modi. Now, every single op-ed or every single interview in the press or on TV starts with Modi ji did this, Modi ji did that. And under the guidance of Modi ji, I did this. Under the guidance of Modi ji, I did that. You've got to stop deifying people, because otherwise you fall into the Indira Gandhi trap. India is Indira, Indira is India. We can't have that, because you've got to institutionalize the office of the Prime Minister. And the PM wants to do that. He doesn't like the sort of sycophancy. He doesn't like deification. I mean, all of us like to be flattered. That's a human nature. But beyond a point, even Mr. Modi realizes that that's actually a negative. So that's 2 of the 6 things where he needs to, I think, take a look at things differently. The third, of course, is protectionism on the economy. I think the bureaucracy in the MOF, the Ministry of Finance, is going a little overboard on protectionism. And there's this polarization thing, you know. I mean, people talk about, oh, our social fabric is torn. Now, that's completely nonsense. You know, I deal with, over the years and even now, I deal with a lot of people in my office, in various other ways, where 210 million Muslims, there is very, very little tension between them and Hindus. I mean, it's really blown out of proportion by this cabal in central Delhi on communalism, because the real secularism is really, can be defined in 4 words: appease nobody and empower everyone. So, you know, when we speak about Mr. Modi and him being communal, people don't realize, and I say this in my book on that particular chapter on secularism and liberalism, that, you know, Praveen Togadia, the VHP's man, was hounded out of Gujarat by Modi when he was chief minister in Gujarat. And Mr. Modi, and again, people don't understand that there are temples in Ahmedabad which are encroaching on public roads. Mr. Modi demolished temples. How many people know that Mr. Modi actually demolishes temples because they encroach on public property? So, you know, polarization is misunderstood. It's happening in many ways. It's used by the BJP to get votes. It's been used by the Congress for 70 years, polarization, Muslim polarization, to get Muslim votes and Christian votes. But nobody said anything about that for 70 years. That doesn't mean Mr. Modi should engage in polarization, obviously, but it's a fact of our life. It's been there for centuries. And the fifth is really compliances. You know, I think, again, it's tied up with protectionism. The amount of compliances that small, medium enterprises have to now do is a real burden on them. Many of them just don't have the resources. And while regulation is good, over-regulation is not. And finally, communications. The communications of the BJP is so god-awful. You know, it's almost as if the Congress was handling the BJP's communications. They are reactive, not proactive. You have to control the narrative. You can't be at the bottom of the narrative. You've got to be on the top of the narrative. The left, the Congress, the RJD, the SP, the AAP, etc., they all immediately get on top of the narrative, and often with fake news. But they push that fake news so cleverly, with such cunning, that it appears for at least a day or two to be okay, and then they withdraw it. By then the narrative has seeped into the consciousness of a lot of people. But a very engaging book, I must say, especially because it is so fixed in the current and in the immediate future of the elections, that it definitely would be a worthwhile read for anybody who wants to pick it up. And I must say that the cover and the battle for India makes it all the more contemporary for people to actually have their curiosity tingle. So many congratulations for the book. We'll exchange notes during and after the elections on how much of what you've written in the book actually comes through, and the discussion on the blueprints on both sides that you shared. How much of that is paid heed to? All that we will take stock of sooner than later. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Minhaz Merchant, for joining me on News. Thank you.